Well, we are glad that we can have a friend in Jesus. We think about it. He's the one that we're focused on. He's the one our hearts should be set on. Certainly we know that He'd have all men to know Him. It's not such that we are special in the sense of God liked us better or something. He'd have everyone to know Him, and we're just glad that we can share the gospel, as was mentioned about the various services at the various places. You know, it's not a different gospel when we get there. I think we've been just taking the same old stuff we bring here. I mean, we've taught some things to the people there we're raised at that are just the same old thing. We brought it here too. Because it's not a different gospel. And we realize that there's many people in the world that maybe they haven't had too much exposure to the Bible. Maybe they haven't had too much introduction to the gospel. But you know, it don't have to be complicated. Folks can come to an understanding of what God's Word says, and it's our heart's desire as we endeavor to share the Word with people that it'll just be plain and simple, just the way God intends it, but that it would speak to the hearts of men that which God would have them to see. Let's turn tonight to Proverbs 11th chapter. We've been reading of late in Proverbs, and you know, there's many things here, and the interesting thing about Proverbs, I suppose, you might could just read Proverbs and might spend just a whole year there. Because the interesting thing is when a proverb is given, in many ways, it encapsulates a truth in just a short saying. So it's like you could read a verse and have something to think about. But we know that each one of those things tie in with other things, and in them we can receive wisdom from God. We know that sometimes maybe in the Proverbs there are things that are hard to understand, and maybe there's things there that we don't always know how to apply them. But I believe that it was included so that we might be able to get a little, you might say, a little glimpse of humanity and how they live and what they do. And from it, get the wisdom that God would have us to have as we live our own life and make the choices that we make. In Proverbs 11, we'll begin at verse 23. It says, "The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. There is that scatters and yet increases, and there is that withholds more than is meet, but it tends to poverty. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. He that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him. But blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth it. He that diligently seeketh good procures favor. But he that seeks mischief, it shall come unto him. He that trusts in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. He that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth, much more the wicked and the sinner. Now this series of Proverbs, I believe, is trying to show us really what we ought to focus on in life. Trying to help us to see that if we put our attention on the right things, our life can go in a good way. As was mentioned many times, people go the way of sin. And I believe if you read what he's saying here, he's also kind of presenting how that if you choose the way of sin, it's not going to be a real good way. But he says here in verse 23 there, he says, the desire of the righteous is only good. We just want good. And we can see it two ways. As a righteous person, I want things that are good in my life. But you know, at the same time, I believe we can look at it this way, that the desire of the righteous is I want to do good things by my life. And I want to accomplish the things that God would have me to do. We think about the 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, and we won't turn there, but he spoke of love, and you know what it said? He seeketh no evil. He's not looking for evil. And I'm not looking for it in my own life, and I'm not looking for it in the lives of others. I don't want to see bad things happen to other folks. But for a righteous person, their desire is, I just want to see good things come about. I want to see it work out good for others. And you know, it's one of the things I'd say is this, if you really get a hold of this, a righteous person isn't going to envy because they wanted the other person to have a good thing. They're not having issues because God blessed somebody else. But the wicked, it says, his expectation is wrath. And you know, there's a verse in Hebrews in the 10th chapter. It says, if we sin willfully after we receive the truth, there is no sacrifice for sins, but a fearful looking for of judgment. The wicked expects wrath, and rightfully so. That's what's ahead. When God helps us to know enough to know that there is a way of right, we need to choose it. Why? Because if we reject that which God shows us, what is there to expect but wrath? And the wicked is looking for bad things to come, and you know, interestingly enough, that's what they find. But if they would choose the good and choose to go in the way that's right, they wouldn't have to live with that expectation of wrath. But rather they could just look for the good, just like the righteous. Verse 24, he says, there is that scatters and yet increases. Sometimes people get the idea the only way I can be richly blessed in life is hoard everything for myself. Well, if your thought is about yourself and yourself only, it's not going to work out so good. But he speaks here of scattering and increasing. You know, some of the people that, I'll just put it in terms of wealth, some of the people that are richest are those that have blessed other people the most. They came up with something that was a real benefit, and yes, they made money at it, but they helped people everywhere they went. Now, I don't want to read this just in the eye of earthly riches. But I want us to see that scattering, putting out, having something to give to other people blesses us. Many times people get all, wrapped up in their own little world and their own little difficulties and their own little troubles. But He's saying that there's those that scatter and they increase. You can give as God would have you to and still prosper. Sometimes people get the idea, well, if I give stuff away, I won't have any. I don't believe that's the case. I believe God can supply your need as you do what God wants you to do. He can bless you with more. And you can get an increase, and some people go, well, I don't know where they come up with it all. They're all the time giving their stuff away. Well, God has given the increase. And so we want you to see that there is a blessing to be had in being a generous person that gives you an increase. And it's not going to be necessarily just things of this world. I know that the preachers out there, they try that. You can't outgive God, and they want you to turn loose of your stuff and then hope that something else bigger will come in its place. That's not what we're about, but we want you to see real prosperity is not just wrapped up in how much stuff you can hold on to. It's in having a good life. And a good life is found when you can have things and put them out and share and benefit and bless others. Then he says, there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tends to poverty. Now, I noticed the italicized words, and I like to read it without them. The thought is, there is that scattereth and yet increases, and that withholdeth more than is meet, but to poverty. Here's what I see. God expects you to take care of your family. If you're the head of the household, God expects you to take care of your family. And we should see that. But he says there is that withholds more than is meet or is proper. Yeah, there's some things I need to hold on to take care of my family. I shouldn't just spend like there's no tomorrow with no thought for what I'm leaving my family to deal with. There's a proper management there of my life's goods. But what he's saying is, there's those that become miserly and go beyond what is proper. And they do so to poverty. In other words, you can be a miser and you can have a lot of stuff stashed back and be just really poor. I believe it was John Wesley that had the thought that with regard to money, his thought was, make all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. And you might listen to that a little bit and go, I can't put those together. How am I going to save all I can and give all I can? Well, what he's saying is, manage it good. Sometimes you need to save money because there's a rainy day coming. But don't see all of life as being a future rainy day. His thought was, and here's what I see, sometimes you need to save it because later you're going to have the opportunity to give it. But if you don't save any, you won't have any to give. And we could go about life that way. Well, man, I got money. It's burning a hole in my pocket. I need to go find a place to spend it. I need to give it away right quick or something. No, what he's saying here is there's a time to save, there's a time to withhold, and there's a certain amount that's proper. But when you go beyond, it tends to poverty. It impoverishes you. We've read about people, and I know we've all read the stories, and usually it happens when the person dies. You read about these people, they were nigh on homeless, living on the street, and they leave a big gift to a college or something. And you go, man, why'd they live so poor for? Why didn't they do something with it while they were living? Why didn't they get the blessing? Why didn't they get the enjoyment? Why didn't they see good things happening while they had life and energy? Rather than just living a miserly, tight, existence with no joy. And it's a blessing. If you've been able to save and you can help someone out at just the right time, you get a real blessing out of that. And yet sometimes people, because they get into hoard mode, they end up impoverished in their spirit. It says, the liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that waters shall be watered also himself. I think about that. The liberal soul shall be made fat. Now, nowadays, people go, but I don't want to be fat. Well, God help us with that issue. And our thought is this. We focus too often on what the outside man's like without focusing enough on the soul. I don't have a problem with doing exercise and kind of watching what you eat and trying to be healthy. But I have no interest in being a bodybuilder. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why. Because it focuses attention on the wrong thing. It's been a while, but we were driving down the road one Saturday and happened to have a religious station on. They were talking about people and their body image issues. Well, that's because you focused on the wrong thing. Oftentimes we maybe focus on women and some of their issues. But if you're a bodybuilder, you got the same body image problem. I want to show you how much muscle I got. What am I reflecting on? How does my body look? When I think about people doing the bodybuilding, here's my thought. First off, if I put on appropriate clothes, it's all covered up. And if I haven't, well, that's the other problem. There's nothing wrong with having muscles. But I've traveled enough. I can see the magazines and what the people are focused upon. Look at me. I don't want my focus there. There's nothing wrong with doing some exercise and some stuff to keep yourself healthy. But he speaks about our soul being fat. I hope I got a fat soul. Now, I didn't say I hope I'm a fat soul. But I hope I got a fat soul. And they said that back then, and I want you to stop and think about why. He talks about scattering and increasing, and we see in the next verse about withholding corn. Sometimes back then, people did well to eat. And so being fat was a sign of prosperity. And there's still places in the world today it's still like that. And in reality, that's why we have such issues with it in our country. In a natural way, we have more prosperity than what we as people oftentimes are willing to admit. I mean, we don't eat right, and that's probably in many cases our own fault. We don't eat right, and so we end up carrying pounds that we don't need and having health issues that we don't want. But the reality is, what efforts I've made to try to get skinnier, it seems like there is food coming at me all the time. It's like, I can't eat all that and ever hope to be skinny. Well, we're blessed. But the important thing he's saying here is the liberal soul shall be prosperous. Spiritual prosperity and generosity, he ties them together. Now we read liberal in the Bible, and you know, I know there's political liberal, and we're not exactly talking about the same thing. And I'll tell you the big difference. A political liberal will take your money and give it to somebody else. Liberal in the body means you'll take your money and give it to somebody else. I mean, I've known people that were liberal politically, and they wanted to take people's money and give it to somebody else, but I never did see them taking theirs in a significant way and giving it away. That's the difference between the Bible and politics, for what it's worth. But the Bible speaks of being liberal as a good thing. And what it's saying is, there should be a generosity. There should be a desire to benefit others. And when we benefit others, our soul prospers. And that's what it means by a fat soul. So I want to have a fat soul. One that's prospering. One that's doing good in God. Because that is a soul that they are doing what God wants them to do, and it is providing real benefit to their spirit. It says, he that waters shall be watered also himself. When you benefit others, it benefits you. Now, as I read that, the thought came into mind. You know, Paul spoke over there in Corinthians, and he said what? He said, Apollos planted and I watered, but God gave the increase. Okay. If you'll be the waterer, you'll get watered too. Now the other thing that comes to mind is Jesus spoke of the Spirit, and what did He say? It'd be a well springing up, a well of the water of life, springing up in you. When we share the gospel with others, we'll get an increase. And if you're struggling to prosper in your soul, I realize you need to get your feet on the rock. You know, it's hard for me to share something with someone else that I really don't have for sure myself. But at the same time, I'll tell you this, if you're not seeing a lot of growth in your soul, start sharing the gospel with some other folks. As was mentioned about teaching and how, you know, you struggle to know what to share with other people. But there's another piece to that. In your struggle to have something to share with other people, you get something yourself. And many times, maybe in the preaching of the gospel and of the teaching, the preacher and the teacher is the one that gets the most. But the thought is, He that waters shall be watered also himself. And so if I'm not doing anything to share the gospel with someone else, maybe that's why I'm all dried up in my soul. We need to see that God didn't put a well of water in you springing up for you to try to contain it like a cistern. A cistern, you just put water in and there's no more coming in, and so as it goes out, it's going to eventually be dry. And if you use a lot of water, you're going to be filling it a lot. But when there's a well of water springing up, it can flow out and water others. But as you do that, you get watered as well. It's one of those things that we can look around at the efforts that's being made, and I'll say this. I believe it blesses us here for what we do there. And our life is, you might say, it was good to hear. We were kind of concerned about the one lady. Where'd she go? Why isn't she here no more? It's good to hear. Well, she's over here. We're glad to hear that. These are people that before this year started, they weren't in our life, but they are now. And they're an interesting part of our life. It's not like I go and share all I've got, all my wonderful things, and there's nothing there for me. They make my life more interesting. And so we want you to see if you're having trouble with things seeming to want to dry up in your soul, pour out some water. You say, "Oh, I'm doing good. Hold on to enough for me." Pour out some water. You never know. It might be that some of what you're watering will water you. Others do have something to give back to us as well. But we need to see that we can just kind of keep things in. We can just kind of keep things to ourselves. We can just kind of be centered on ourselves. And we'll just dry up, shrivel up, and just be a shriveled old soul walking around. I want to be a fat soul, flourishing in the things of God. It says, "He that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him. But blessing shall be upon the head of him that sells it." Back then, I'm sure it was tempting to hold on to that harvest until you got through the year, maybe. But it's saying, if your neighbor comes over, sell him some. Sell him some. And part of what we thought about here was, we thought about Joseph. During those 7 fat years, they gathered up those ears of corn and put them in the barn. And then when the famine came, they started selling them. It's good to have something to offer in the hard times. And sometimes we as people might feel like, but I need all I've got. Well, maybe you can share a little and still prosper. It's good to try it out and find out. But one of the things I thought about as I considered this, now there's a certain mindset out there that hard times are coming. And they might be. I look around at all the sin and the wickedness, and I recognize that just because we've lived in a blessed place, don't mean that the hard times couldn't come here. And some people's idea is, well, I'm going to store up for the hard times. Well, that's not necessarily a bad idea. But I guess I'll say, let's think about the survivalist mindset just a little bit. I'm going to put back a year or 2 or 3's worth of food, and I'm going to put it, and then I'm going to hang my shotgun over the door. Now, what do you suppose that shotgun might be for? Because I'm going to keep this all for me when the times get hard. Well, there's nothing wrong with putting back for the hard times, but when the times get hard, you might need to be selling some of that corn to help other folks. So he's maybe given us something to think about how people look at some of these things and what their plan is. I believe that there's something to be said for saving up for that rainy day. There's something to be said maybe for going, I believe hard times are coming and I'm going to be ready. But one of the thoughts maybe we need to have in it, if I'm working that hard to be ready, is I'm going to be ready, and when that hard time comes, I'm going to have the stuff to be a real blessing. Because I'll be out there selling corn just like Joseph. Unfortunately, most people's thinking's not quite that way. Their thinking is more, I'm going to put this stuff up and I'll have it and I'll be doing real well while everybody else is struggling. He's saying, if that's you, people will curse you. That's you. Well, I'm going to have it good and everybody else can just, they should have been ants like me. We don't want to think that way. Certainly prepare for the rainy day if you feel like it's coming. But prepare with the idea that, if the going gets tough and I've been blessed of God to think ahead, it's going to be my time to be a blessing. I'm going to have to give. I'm going to have to share. But don't do all your planning for that hard time ahead. Do some good things today. But I want you to see how that people could be that way. Well, I prepared for my rainy day and your problem's yours. People will curse you. Why? Because that's not a good way to be. We want you to see that he's picturing liberality here and what it ought to be. I know that there are people that anticipate rainy days, and could I say this? Good businessmen do well in those times because they're out there selling corn to people that need it. They thought ahead and blessed humanity by doing it. The fact that they do well should not offend us because they at least thought ahead better than we did. I think about it, really, I'm counting on a lot of folks doing a lot of things to enjoy the prosperity I enjoy. Why, we just go down to the store and we just expect that stuff, it'll just be there. Now that stuff didn't just hop up on the shelf. Somebody had to grow all that stuff. Somebody had to bother to stick it in a can and seal up the can and hopefully do it right so that it'll still be good when I take it off the shelf. But you realize how much we count on other people to do good things, to enjoy the good life we enjoy. So why wouldn't I want to be one of the people out there selling? One of the people out there doing good things to benefit the flow of society? I believe we should be. And where we can offer things to others and help them. He speaks of selling it here, but the whole thought is, if I've got it and I can provide for others, shouldn't I be providing it? Well, there's a place in the Proverbs that says, buy the truth and sell it not. Now, what's it saying? It's really saying this: don't turn your back on it. But get the truth and don't be afraid to share it wherever opportunity you get, because it can benefit others. Verse 27 says, he that diligently seeks good procures favor. You know, if we're looking after good things, people out there like to meet good people. Did you ever notice that? Folks like to meet good folks. Now I realize there's a sinful and wicked element in society, and maybe they're so focused on their sin they can't even notice anything good. But most people like to meet good people. So if you'll diligently seek after good, it'll bring favor in your life. Some people go, well, it seems like everybody likes you. Well, if I'm always looking out for good things for them, I expect so. But the point is, diligently seeking good can bring favor. We want the world to look upon God's church in a good way. Diligently seek after good. And the church can have favor in the community. But we need to see that at the same time, he says, if you diligently seek good, it procures favor. It's a good thing. But look at what else he says. He that seeketh mischief, it will come to him. You know, if you seek mischief, you'll find it. Now, I read that with this thought. You know, a lot of times people are seeking mischief and they're doing bad things to other folks. Somehow in their mind it don't seem like it occurs to them, this is going to come around to me someday. Well, if you're looking for mischief, you're going to find it. How often people go out and sow wild oats and wonder why they start to reap a harvest. Well, if that's the kind of seed you put in, that's the kind of harvest you're going to get. So he said, he that seeketh mischief, it's going to come to him. I've known people, their thought was, I can't seem to get anything to come right in my life. Well, what are you doing that's good? First question, what are you doing that's good? I know there's people out there that goes, man, everything just keeps turning up bad for me. Everything just keeps going. Well, have you quit seeking for mischief yet? Well, that's why you keep finding it. Diligently seek good. And you'll find favor. You'll find benefit. You'll find blessing. He that trusteth in his riches shall fall. Riches can't keep us going. There's another place where it says that it describes it and it says that the rich answers roughly, but the poor uses entreaties. Riches aren't what makes us good. Riches aren't what makes us a blessing. You know, when the rich young man came to Jesus, he said, well, just sell everything you got and come follow me and you'll be fine. He went away sorrowful. And what did Jesus say? How hardly shall they that trust in riches enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now he didn't say how hardly shall they that have riches enter into the kingdom of heaven, but they that trust. And you say, what is the significant point? Well, what is your life wrapped up around? If your life is wrapped up around the things that you possess, the reality is the things possess you. But you know, Paul said in another place, he says those that have riches, he says, things God has given us to enjoy, be mindful to do good works. And his thought was, you could serve God and have some things, but you could not put your faith in those things. They could not be the center of your life. They could not be what defines who you are. They should just be things that you look on, I got this, and this can be an opportunity for me to do the things I need to do. But our faith needs to be in God. You see here, he's tying these together, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. You can put fruit on, God can do some trimming and purging, and it can bear much fruit. But what are you counting on? Not the riches, the vine. That's what we're counting on. And we need to see God can give us things. We're well prospered here as far as we all have food to eat and clothes to wear and roof over our head. And those necessities of life are provided to us. And in reality, most of us provided in such a sufficient capacity. We could share with others. We can help others at times. But the righteous shall flourish as a branch. Our focus needs to be on righteousness. But many times, that is the trap of this world's goods, that you start counting on them instead of God. We need that righteousness that is found in Jesus Christ. We need to be counting on that. We need to be looking to that. We need to make sure that I'm doing well there. And if some of the things of this world have to be lost or fall away, I would rather lose them and find the prosperity that comes in righteousness than count on riches to get me through. Because it says here that if you trust in them, you're going to fall. There's a snare down the road. Something's going to get you. They won't see you through. Sometimes people think, well, man, the rich can get away with anything. No. A lot of times it catches up with them. Maybe they do seemingly a time or two, but eventually it does catch up with them. He that trusts in those, he don't have anything that's a sure thing. I'll tell you, people have all kinds of thoughts about how I'm going to have the stuff I need to get me through. If the system fails, I'm going to have enough stash somewhere to make it. I have yet to think up a way that I could have riches that would be worthy of trust. I know if you even look at our coins, what do they say? In God we trust. Well, if you're counting on that money, you're trusting the wrong thing. Because if they keep at it, it's not going to be worth anything anyway. And if they can't take it that way, they might take it some other way. Our point is this: riches, I believe it says in another place, either in the Proverbs or Ecclesiastes, they take wings and fly away. So if that's where your trust is at, it's going to fall. You're going to fail. But if you find the righteousness that is in Jesus Christ, you can flourish as a branch. Just stay in the vine, and you can draw that which you need. Verse 30, it says, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that wins souls is wise. The fruit of a... If you're the righteous, you're flourishing as a branch, the fruit of that flourishing is a tree of life. Does your life bring life to others? It says, that's the fruit of the righteous, a tree of life. You can bring strength, you can bring courage, you can bring hope. And not that you can save others yourself, but you know, as we prosper in the Lord, our life should be such that God can use it to draw others to Himself. It says, he that wins souls is wise. And you know, I used to read that. I think that meant you really know a lot, but it really don't. What it's really saying is this: if you're in the business of bringing souls to God, you've chosen the right business. That's what it's really saying. When it says, he that wins souls is wise, it don't mean that I've got great intellect and I can figure out how to approach people and work on them. No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying when you lead people to God, you've made the wise choice of what to do with your life. That's the message that's there. He that's you know, his life, the fruit of his life is a tree of life. He wins souls to God. That is a wise choice for your life. Oftentimes, maybe we don't say much about people in the ministry of the gospel, but I would like to say in this: if you've chosen to use your life to work for God, you've made a wise choice. We need to see that our life should be such that it brings life to others. Our life should be focused on doing God's work. Are we making a wise choice of how to spend our life? You know, I realize if you're the provider in the house, you've got to go to work. You need to make a living. You need to take care of your family. And we encourage that level of responsibility. But you know, at the same time, my life is not focused on reaching the top. As has been said before, and many times it's been said, I'm not sure there's anyone gets to the end of their life and says, I wish I'd have spent more time at the office. Why? Because that's not a wise way to spend your life, just trying to get to the top. But it is wise to choose to use your life to spread the gospel. That's a wise choice. You say, well, I'm not a preacher. I'm not saying you have to be a preacher. There's plenty of folks touch other people's lives without being a preacher. But they still had to have the focus that the wise choice of my life is to use it for God. I think about and while maybe I don't agree with all that they are, I think about the fellow that started the Gideons. You know what his idea was? I'm a businessman, but I want to plant the gospel. So he started putting out Bibles for people to read. He didn't maybe have a whole lot to say, but he thought it was a good thing for a man that's stuck in another town doing business to be in that hotel and open a drawer and go, a Bible. And maybe sitting there with, here it is, I'm far away from home, I don't have anything to do. And I believe maybe it got started before people sat and watched the mindless stuff on TV. And people are there with nothing to do and maybe nothing to read, and they open the drawer and a Bible. Now, it's maybe moved from where he was at a bit. But my point is, he realized there's something important beyond business. And the important thing was pointing souls to Christ. Every one of us, as we live our life and we go out and do our daily jobs, and I've gone out and done my job just like others, and it's easy to get wrapped up in it sometimes, but we want you to see, if you want to make a really wise choice with your life, winning souls is the wise choice. Say, we all, when we're growing up, you get to be about 17, 18, 19, you're starting to have to try to decide, what am I going to do now that I can't just count on mom and dad and just kind of kick around here at school? Well, you got to decide, what am I going to do with my life? And it might be that you realize, I need to learn how to do some kind of skill so that I can earn enough money that I have food to eat and clothes to wear. And that's all right. I've encouraged my children to learn some kind of skill. I don't believe that's bad. But I would say this, having learned that skill, it's all right to do a good job at it. But there's more to life than that. The wise choice is to live your life, to lift up Jesus Christ. Whatever skill you might have acquired, whatever ability you might have, you can use those things that it'll give you the opportunity to be liberal, it'll give you the opportunity to be generous, it'll maybe give you some of this world's riches, but stay focused on the wise choice. And that is pointing others to Jesus Christ. When I get to the end of the road, I want to hear, well done. But it don't stop there. I believe the Scripture talks about that those that you win, you can have some stars in your crown. You can have a better crown. I'd like to get to the end of the road and know that there's somebody going to be in heaven because of the choice that I made for my life. And we can get wrapped up in all kinds of things. There's lots of things out there that, maybe they're not inherently wicked of themselves. They're enjoyable. They're fun. But I can get wrapped up in that in this life. And just living, you might say, by good morals and having a good time and prospering in life. But it's just not enough for God. So he says, he that wins souls is wise. Make the wise choice for your life. God would have us, if we think about it, God would have us all in the business of evangelism. That's the family business, you might say. And God would have us all in it. His work should be ours. We need to see that that is where the wise choice is at. You say, well, I don't know much about the Bible. I hope this helps you see. It's not great intellect, great theology, great wisdom as the world looks upon the wise. It is the significance of the choices that we have made in life to serve God and live for Him. Now, verse 31 kind of sums up what we've been looking at. Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth. Much more the wicked and the sinner. You know, what he's saying is this. We encourage people to think about heaven. And we encourage people to look out towards the end of the way. And we encourage people to think about what it's going to be like to be over there. But he's saying there's benefit to serving God right here. He's saying you water other people, you're going to get some watering right here. He said you sell corn when other people are withholding it, and blessing's going to be upon you. He said you diligently seek good, you're going to procure some favor. You scatter, you're putting out, you're going to see an increase. All of those refer to things in many ways that have to do with life right here. So the righteous will be recompensed in the earth. I think there are benefits to living for God right now. And that's why it's such an erroneous thought. When people have this idea, well, I'm going to go live my life and soak up the things of this world, and then I'll turn to God right before the end. They only can be thinking about the final result. What about now? What about now? Think about now. There's benefits to serving God now. And I know that in one sense we could say, well, you encounter some persecutions and you encounter some hard things that come against you because you're a child of God. Maybe so. But he says here, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth, much more the wicked and the sinner. What's he saying? You go that way of sin, there'll be a recompense right now. And I believe if we as people would look around in our lives at some people that have chosen that road, we might discover that's so. That's so. That's what these Proverbs are trying to help us see. The way of God is a good way. If we're diligently seeking good things, we'll find it in God. If we choose wisely to live our life for God, there is a blessing and a benefit right now. And if we choose to go the way of the wicked and the sinner, the crop's going to start to produce fruit before this life is over. Can we see the wisdom of what He has to say? Our life choices do matter. They matter for this life. They matter for eternity. I want to choose those things that are good. I want to choose those things that benefit my soul. I want to choose those things that benefit my fellow man. I want to choose those things that have real, lasting value to them. And that choice is the path of righteousness. To turn to God through Jesus Christ. Live for Him. Live to accomplish His purpose. Live to be a part of His work. Live to see other souls benefited and blessed by the gospel. That's the right choice for now, for eternity. Let's all make that our choice for our life.